changed it.
Well, it looks like it's time for us to start, and there's Jake. So we'll call to order the electronic study meeting, the West Valley City Council. And in accordance with state law, pursuant to Utah Code, West Valley City has determined that this meeting will be held electronically without an anchor location, given the ongoing novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. West Valley City has determined the pandemic presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at an anchor location. This meeting will be held electronically. Members of the press and public are invited to view this meeting live on YouTube at www.youtube.com/user/WVCTV. There we go. We note that we have 6 members of the council present. I believe our 7th one, Councilman Yun, will join us shortly. Let's see, with that information then, the next item on our agenda, the approval of the minutes of November 17th. Motion and a second on the minutes. Or discussion.
I'd move for approval of the November 17th minutes.
Second.
Sounds like no discussion, so without further ado, without objection, the minutes will be approved. Hearing no objection, the roll call vote, or excuse me, not the roll call vote, the vote is unanimous. The minutes are approved. Then reviewing our agenda for later tonight, my understanding is that the agenda has remained the same. The only change is in some of the backup materials, information relating to what the council discussed last week on a couple of changes. And I didn't look at those during my break, forgot to go check them, but they'll be there on the agenda with the things that were recommended by the council for modification last week. So, do we need to discuss those further, or? Excuse me. All right then. As you note, our agenda is not as long as other times. So we go right to communications. Our first communication will be social worker mental health court update. Because her picture is showing up in full color, Chief Jacobs, it looks like you're going to do the presentation? Or
I am going to do the introductions.
Okay, very good.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is an update from our licensed clinical social worker contract that we have with Ms. Tori Yates and the University of Utah, and also an update on our mental health court that we do through Justice Court. So we have Ms. Tori Yates here with us and Sergeant Scott Arnold, who I do not believe has ever been before you, but I have full confidence in his ability to present. So I will turn the time over to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen with you guys real quick. All right. So I've been asked to give a quick update on our mental health court as well as our licensed clinical social worker program. Just as a quick overview of what our court is for anyone that may have forgotten or for anybody who might be watching remotely. So our West Valley City Mental Health Court is a collaborative effort between law enforcement, criminal justice, and mental health organizations to provide additional avenues for treatment and mental health assistance to violators with qualifying offenses and a qualifying mental health diagnosis. To be able to qualify for our mental health court, you initially have to have a qualifying offense, which typically are Class B misdemeanors and below. But there are the occasional Class A misdemeanor that if the case would be best served to be done in mental health court, the prosecutor's office can lessen the charge to be able to get that into our mental health court. You also have to have a qualifying diagnosis to be able to qualify for our mental health court, which means you have to qualify with a certified mental health diagnosis of psychosis, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, major depression, or bipolar. Those are the main qualifying diagnoses to qualify for mental health court.
Sorry, there we go.
Sorry, yeah, I'm getting a little lag on my end. I apologize. So how does somebody qualify for our mental health court? Initially, they have to obviously have a violation of law. The case is typically referred to the mental health court by our CIT detectives, our city prosecutor's office, or the justice court judges. We do occasionally get referrals from the public defender's office, Salt Lake County Probation, and Cornerstone Counseling. Everybody that gets referred to our mental health court has to go through an LSCMI evaluation by Salt Lake County Probation. This is basically a pre-sentencing report that helps to determine what their risk of reoffending is. Our mental health court only takes individuals that have a medium to high reoffense likelihood. They also have to receive an official mental health diagnosis from Cornerstone Counseling, and then they plea into our mental health court and are immediately placed on our mental health court probation. So our mental health court is ran through 4 phases of probation. All of the probation is supervised by one of the detectives assigned to my unit, Detective Ray Wilhelm. He conducts at a minimum weekly compliance checks, and in some cases multiple times during the week is he following up with our probationers. Each individual that is placed on mental health court probation is mandated to go through group and individual counseling through Cornerstone Counseling. They also have UAs and drug tests through Salt Lake County Probation on a weekly basis. They have individual and group meetings with our mental health court judge, Judge Gilmore. Once they work through the first initial phases, when they get to phase 3, they can have their fines and their fees waived by the court. And then they graduate with a graduation project, which is usually some kind of a letter or other means of expressing what the mental health court meant to them. And they do that in phase 4. So 2020 was kind of a tricky year, obviously, with COVID. In March of 2020, we had approximately 9 mental health probationers being actively supervised by our mental health court and 5 additional probationers out to warrant, which means they were individuals that were on mental health court probation, but for one reason or another, they had violated probation and a warrant had been issued by the judge for their arrest. Currently, we have 13 mental health court probationers being actively supervised and 3 probationers out to warrant. There was 27 additional referrals made to the court in 2020 for individuals that qualified for mental health court, but we only had 6 new plea-ins. With the COVID-19 restrictions that the court placed, we were allowed to make referrals. Sorry, there were no referrals allowed during March and September, and those people were not able to plea in to address their charges. We are starting to slowly see that trickle in a little bit where we're able to get some of these people in before the judge to plea out their charges and get them placed on probation. We are currently scheduled to have 1 of our probationers graduate from mental health court in 2020 in December, with a second pending for later this year. We did have 1 individual that was terminated off of probation due to non-compliance. When somebody's terminated from probation, those charges are then referred back to the standard justice court or district court, depending on what the charges are. I'm not quite sure why this is not wanting to work. So just a couple success stories why we feel the mental health court is working well and is a good investment for our city and for our department. We did have 1 female probationer who was having severe mental health crisis combined with drug abuse. We were arresting her on a fairly regular basis for misdemeanor drug offenses. Since she's entered the mental health court probation system, she's currently on track to graduate in December with 0 violations. So she's been able to make some major changes in her life to get clean off of her drug addiction, as well as get treatment for her mental health illness. We also have an additional female probationer that was struggling during the beginning of 2020. She has a lot of mental health issues due to trauma that occurred in her life, and she tends to relapse around those anniversary dates related to her trauma, which has resulted in some suicidal behavior. This year, we've been able to help get her into some additional programs through the mental health court to address her mental health and her sobriety. She is currently compliant and has had a major change in her life. Judge Gilmore noted that there's been a massive change in her demeanor and attitude, and she's currently in compliance with all aspects of her probation. Going on to our licensed clinical social worker program. For those who don't know who our LCSW is, it's Tori Yates. She's on this meeting with us. Tori has over 20 years experience working with mental health and substance abuse issues. She comes with a very profound pedigree and background in mental health field. She's an employee of the University of Utah Neuropsychiatric Institute, UNI, and she's been contracted here working with us West Valley since November of last year. Previously, she had worked with MCOT, which is the Mobile Crisis Outreach Team. She also supervised the suicide hotline for the state of Utah, as well as helped develop the Safe UT app, which allows people to reach out when they're in a mental health crisis or to report other individuals that might be in some kind of crisis. She is currently the mental health coordinator for CIT Metro, which is the organization that West Valley City Police Department belongs to for our crisis intervention training. She's also currently the president and acting chair of the Utah chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So we're lucky to have Tori on board. She's a great asset to our team. Some of the different roles and responsibilities that she fills within the program, as well as mental health court, first and foremost is the role that she plays with our mental health court. She responds with our mental health court detective on all of the follow-ups and compliance checks with each of our probationers, while the mental health court detective might be on scene to check the individuals in compliance with not being in possession of drugs or alcohol. She sits down with those probationers to assess their home life and provide resources and help intervene if they are experiencing mental health crisis. She also works with family members and caregivers of these individuals to provide them resources as well, since caregiver fatigue is a very real thing. She also works with the local treatment providers and case managers to assist with probation compliance and treatment services. And she coordinates with the outpatient treatment or medical providers to provide clinical feedback. Some of the other roles that she fills is she works with our homeless outreach program with our detectives in the COP unit. She does conduct in-person contact with transient individuals to help provide resources. She assists in developing training for our officers when it comes to CIT training. She assists in reviewing all CIT and mental health reports from our CIT Tier 2 officers, which are our certified CIT officers in patrol that go out and handle our mental health crisis calls. She reviews all the involuntary commitments completed by West Valley Police Department, which is quite a few. She responds with our CIT detectives on follow-ups with our mental health consumers to help provide resources to those consumers as well as their caregivers. And when I talk about mental health consumers, these are individuals that are contacting our police department on a regular basis and utilizing a lot of our services. They may be individuals that are not necessarily violating the law, so they don't fall into our mental health court, but these are individuals that are having some kind of mental health crisis that tend to reach out to the police department on a fairly regular basis. So she helps follow up with these individuals to try to get them services so that we can cut back on the amount of resources that they're utilizing within the police department in the city. She's also a consultant for our crisis negotiations team and responds out on active crisis negotiations to assist our crisis negotiations team with mental health assessments. And she also assists our unit in conducting threat assessments. We receive a variety of threat assessments on a regular basis to the police department, whether these are threats directly towards the police department or the city itself, as well as businesses within the city or individuals as well. So over the last year, Tori has had a pretty busy schedule. We put a lot on her plate. She's been assigned over 376 cases. These are all reviews of all involuntary commitment cases or pink sheets to ensure that the officers have been following our department policy as well as state law. This is a big thing to help limit the liability on the city and the department. When we conduct these involuntary commitments or pink sheets, we're taking away someone's freedom and forcing them into mental health commitment or treatment at a hospital. Because we are taking away somebody's freedom similar to an arrest, there is a lot of liability that can come back if we're not following department policy and state law. So Tori reviews every single case that comes through. I review it and then I send it to her for a secondary review to assure that our officers are following state law, following proper documentation. And then if she recognizes any issues or areas of concern, then we help to incorporate that into our yearly training with our officers so that we can, again, reduce additional liability and provide the best service to our citizens. As far as homeless outreach this year, she did have approximately 20 in-person contacts. Obviously, this was limited quite a bit due to our COVID-19 outbreak here in the city. On a normal year, when we're not dealing with a pandemic, that number would be greatly increased. She also assisted in conducting over 20 threat assessments. And again, these varied from threats to businesses, city entities, individuals, as well as law enforcement officers and the department in general. And one of the other things that Tori's been able to help us out with that's been a great use is she's been able to help locate numerous missing persons through her access to local medical and treatment databases. We've had numerous cases where our detectives have been trying to locate an individual that families have reported missing and have run into dead ends, and Tori's been able to track them down through the medical databases that she has access to and find that they were actually currently checked into hospitals or other treatment facilities. So why is this all important? Why is the mental health court and our LCSW program and our CIT program important? Obviously, in 2020, we've seen quite a few headlines in regards to questionable shootings or concerns that the public have had in regards to mental health and law enforcement use of force, as well as the need for police reform or change. So our mental health court and our CIT program surpasses the best practice standards established by CIT International. Most, if not all, CIT programs within the state of Utah and throughout the United States look to CIT as the standard, the gold star standard of what they want their mental health training to be for officers. Our CIT program and mental health court surpasses all those best practice standards, including we provide more training than they may require. We have an established program within West Valley City that surpasses their best practice standards. Our program and our model that we utilize here in West Valley has actually become the model program for numerous other agencies throughout the state. I've been assigned to this unit for about 2.5 months, almost 3 months now, and I have agencies throughout the state as well as agencies from outside of the state of Utah reaching out to me on at least a monthly, if not almost weekly basis, wanting information on what we're doing with our CIT program, because they recognize that what we're doing is working and they want to incorporate what they're doing with their own agencies. Salt Lake City Police Department recently reached out and wanted to get a copy of all of what we're doing with our CIT program to present to their city council, because their city council has heard what we're doing here in West Valley and they want to incorporate a similar program there in Salt Lake City. That agencies in Utah County, Orem Police Department recently started utilizing our special needs safety program that was developed by our CIT program. They've renamed it something different, but they're utilizing that same program within their department and throughout their county as well as numerous other agencies. The nice thing about this puts us ahead of the curve when it comes to police and mental health reform. When a lot of other agencies tend to be in the news in a negative way in regards to what they're doing for mental health reform and law enforcement's response to individuals in mental health crisis, West Valley tends to be ahead of the curve on a lot of that, and we haven't ran into the issues or concerns from the community. Most people recognize that West Valley has kind of been out in the forefront of establishing a good CIT program and reaching out to those individuals in our community with mental health crisis to help reduce the likelihood of additional law enforcement contacts, uses of force, and liability within our within our city. So again, that's just a quick update and overview of those programs. If there's any questions that anybody has, I'd be glad to answer any of those. And if it's something I can't answer, that's why I've got Tori here with me to help answer some of those questions.
Council?
May I have a question or two?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Like to know the department's feeling on staffing level for these programs. Are we in a sweet spot? Are we understaffed, overstaffed? What are we looking at maybe in a year or two to come?
Currently, we have nearly full staffing. I believe that we are one detective shy in our CIT program. The chief has done an excellent job to assure that we've had the proper staffing levels for our unit. As our mental health court tends to grow and we get more probationers into our court, we are going to need additional staffing to make sure that we have enough detectives to cover all of those probationers with their weekly follow-ups. But where we're currently at with probationers and within our unit, we have adequate staffing, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Any others? I do have one that perhaps you could clarify a little bit. You mentioned substance abuse in relation to, I guess, increasing the problems with those with mental health issues. Is not taking their medicine for mental health reasons considered substance abuse?
To a certain degree, yes. A lot of the issues that we run into with substance abuse with our mental health consumers is the fact that many of them just don't have access to the resources to obtain the medications and the medical treatment that they need. So a lot of them are utilizing illegal substances as a means of self-medicating. And a lot of times those illegal substances that they're using only enhance that mental illness issue that they're having. So rather than solving the problem, it tends to compound it.
Okay. It would seem like, though, see, if someone's taking illegal drugs, you have recourse there.
Yes.
But what if someone's not taking legally prescribed prescriptions to contain their mental health issues?
So in a general sense, we don't have a whole lot of control over that. With our mental health court, individuals that are probationers with our mental health court, part of that probation is that they are following a treatment program, whether that be counseling, medication, whatever it might be. If they aren't in compliance with what has been ordered by the mental health court's probation, then they can be in violation of their probation, and there are ramifications, whether it be fines or jail time. But on a standard scale of individuals that are simply not taking their prescribed medications, we really don't have a whole lot of recourse on that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments, council?
Yes, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to Ms. Yates and to you, Sergeant, and the whole group, and to the chief. This is a great program. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I have to give thanks to Chief Jacobs. She has been very open and willing since the inception of this program to listen to what we feel were the needs for our department and for the city. And while when this first started, it was very innovative and not a whole lot of people were doing it, and there wasn't a lot of push for it, she was open to the idea and has made sure that it's been a priority. So as well as the council and the rest of the city, as far as funding a lot of this, I know that this doesn't come necessarily cheap, but I think it's something that's necessary and has been a massive plus for our city and for our citizens.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Appreciate the
time.
report. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Then let's see, open space requirements follow-up. And is this going to be Mr. Pastrick again, or? It is.
Yes,
Welcome.
good evening, Mayor. Thank you. So this item was added to the agenda at the request of the council. So a few weeks ago, we had this item on for discussion. At that meeting, I presented to the council the first file that's in your packet. So it was a presentation with information about recreation and landscaping, or recreation space and landscaping. In that presentation, there were some recommendations about potential standards if the council wanted to amend our code as it relates to recreation space and landscaping. And following that discussion, the council wanted to have some further discussion on the topic. Also included in your packet is a table. We did reach out to a few other cities just to look at what their standards are. And I think the main point of this, it just illustrates that cities do things quite a bit differently from one from another. And so you can see there are definitely different approaches. Even, some cities have different approaches depending on where you are in the city or what zone you're in. So just wanted to provide some additional information there. But beyond that table, no new information. And so again, it was more the council wanted to have a follow-up discussion about this topic.
Mr. Pastrick, I want to thank you as well. I spent some time with Steve and got many of my questions answered about things I wondered about. And he did a great job explaining, bringing me up to speed on many of the issues.
Thank you, Mayor.
And then I ended up with 3 issues that I thought I would raise, but does the council have any issues they want to raise? They may be the same or may not.
Go for it, Mayor.
Okay. When I went through this, many questions arose, but Steve went through, explained them, the justification for it. And for me, that kind of changed my feelings on many of those issues, made me much more comfortable. There was one issue, and I'll bring up 3, but the first one, we had a proposal from a developer that recently came forward. They had townhomes mixed in with apartments. And it seemed, as I discussed it with Steve, that typically that when you do that right now, the green space, the recreation space around the townhomes is included with that same recreation / green space, whatever, with the apartments. But because townhomes typically have more space around them than apartments buildings do, it seems like it was almost an escape valve, if you will, to include and get to the required percentages. And the ones who got shortchanged were the apartment dwellers. And so I thought maybe when someone does that, it's not very often, but when they do that, I'm wondering, in fact, even suggesting that we probably ought to separate those because there's significantly different percentages and requirements. If it's just a townhome project versus just an apartment complex, high density. So I don't know if the council would feel comfortable with that or not. I don't think it's a huge change. It's not very common. I think, Mr. Pastrick, you said there had only been a couple of those over the years.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's not something common, but kind of struck me. Don't know what you think about that. Any comments?
That makes sense to me, Mayor.
I would
Oh.
agree with you as well, Mayor.
I think so too.
Okay, that's an easy one. I took the easy one first. Uh, the two items are somewhat related. 2 and 3 that I want to bring up. One, I really can't find a good solution for, and so probably nothing will come of it. So let me give you the first, and that's why I'm focusing first on this number 2. I was looking at, we're built out. We're not going to be able to have a lot of new parks when they fill in, build another apartment building. They'll have a little bit of green space. There's the 25%, the 10%, so forth, that they have of this space. And so I say, well, how can I do something to make our city more environmentally green, or greener, I should say. And so my number 2 item was to say, we ought to increase the number of trees they're required to plant. My number 3 issue was that we increase the percentage devoted to the green space. But if you increase the percentage, and I had Steve give me a scenario, and I said, well, what would happen were projects 30 units per acre or higher, where they're required to have 10% of this common green recreation space. And he said that it could have a major impact because they would then no longer have as many parking spaces available, which means that they would have to reduce the number of residences, making it lower density. And I wasn't sure I wanted to go that far. So I focused on the trees because I think right now on the standard, it's 1 tree per 300 square feet of minimum required setback. And sometimes they add more, I don't know, because there's really a lot of variation in the design of a project. And so I said, well, gee, what could I do that's reasonable, or at least propose? And this is what we came up with was 1 tree per 1,500 square feet for landscaped areas outside of the setback. Now that's not a lot, but it's more trees. See, if I can't have the green space, I thought, well, gee, trees are great. If we had more trees in West Valley, I wouldn't be unhappy. So that's what I'm suggesting that we do, is add a requirement on for more trees. And you can certainly ask Steve Pastrick about the impact of that and how that would impact things. Because typically the trees are planted in the common areas, and he told me about, along the streets and so forth. But I don't know how you feel about more trees, so I'll stop there. Any comments?
What was the limitation on getting more landscaping? I don't understand why you couldn't get more landscaping. You were settling for trees.
The only reason I did is because the impact was significantly greater. In other words, we could increase the percentage of landscaped areas. But what happens then is, because you're taking a piece of ground and it has set boundaries, if you're going to increase the percentage of landscape, most likely either through elimination of parking or something else, you will either reduce the size of the units or the number of units or the number of parking spaces. And that has some challenges. That's why. No other reason. Although I'd still love to do it, but I don't know. I just didn't think that one would fly quite as well.
Well, and I'm good with less units if that's what they need to do to get the more landscaping. I guess maybe what we need to do is tie in the extra parking with the number of units so that that doesn't get left behind, and then leave the amenities where it's at so that they have to have a minimum. They can't get rid of the amenities. And then maybe we just need to set some rules against how many units and have more landscaping, because I see landscaping being such a complement to this, to the high density. So I don't know.
Well, you know, Steve and I had quite a discussion because when I went through, and there's two different kinds of projects, and because I couldn't define them really well, I called them a city project. And by city, I mean like Fairborn Station, where you don't have much landscaping. Your common areas are inside. It's a totally different look and feel versus what I would call, I guess, more of a residential. I don't quite what the other one, but like some of them we've recently approved where, you know, they have common areas, they have tennis courts, they have swimming pools, they have park areas, those kinds of things. And they're not inside a building, they're outside. So there's kind of two different standards there. And I don't want to eliminate either one of those. So this would only impact those that are what I kind of refer to this residential, you know, landscape type of one rather than the city one. The city one, I called it that because it reminded me of the big cities, you know, all your amenities are inside. Yeah, I go to New York and there's, other than Central Park, there's almost nothing, you know, outside. There's lots of green spaces on roofs and inside and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
So, any other comments? Do you like the idea of more trees or not?
Yes, anything that will help give us more green, and you know, trees are good for the environment, so I would be in favor of that.
Anyone else?
I'm also okay with that. Excuse me.
I would also be in favor of more trees.
I'm not against more trees, but I wonder about the implications and if this would limit other things. I want to think about it some more.
Okay.
And my thought is that I don't know if we're fixing a problem or just changing regulations. I mean, not against more trees. I'm not against more green space. I'm in favor of nice developments, but working in the abstract kind of like this, you know, I don't know where I am. Like I said, I'm not opposed to things that are being said, but I don't know that they're necessary. And it just feels like we're working on an issue where I'm not sure we're solving a problem that I haven't seen. That's just
You know,
my opinion.
oh, go ahead. Councilman Bueller, you're right. Um, is this a problem per se? And the answer is no. It's not solving a problem. It's making a change, because I tried to look and I said, well, gee, you know, how much money can we spend on additional parks? Well, not much. And there's not much land left for those parks. So what can we do in the framework that we're in a smaller piece of land that is going to be developed? Could we increase the amount of landscaping? Could we increase the number of trees? Well, I'd like to do them both, really. But I think that the impact of increasing the landscape is much greater than increasing the number of trees. And if I'm saying something that's not true, Mr. Pastorick, you got to jump in here. But that's the way I interpreted it.
Well, Mayor, I think you brought is a valid point, but I think I'm like Steve Bueller. I don't know. We're gonna fixing the problem or creating a problem here. So I'm right in the middle. I'm not there yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And I restate, this isn't a problem unless you have a goal similar to the one I do, which is how do I make West Valley City more environmentally green? How do I do that within what we're doing right now, knowing that we're not going to spend millions of tax dollars for land and for, to build parks, additional parks beyond the ones in a residential development. And this is what I came up with. Because I want West Valley to be more, and I use the term environmentally green because you can have green buildings too, but the environment, the outside, the landscaping, and that's relatively benign. But I'm happy to let you ponder it some more. I would sure like to see it though.
So, Mayor, do you see this only applying then to new developments?
Yes. I would, there's lots of things I'd like to go back and change, not just on trees and landscaping, but the size of homes and density and agricultural areas, but those are unrealistic. I mean, it's built.
We can plant more trees with the current home, existing home. We can do that too, Mayor.
Yeah. Okay, now that got a discussion going. Those were items that I raised. Any other issues that you see or would like to have further information on? And do you want to bring this back again or not? It sounds like we will bring it back in the future, but we're not ready to finalize some of the pieces. And maybe you'll want to study some of the information that we got from other cities. And I kind of like the change from open space to recreation space. By the way, who suggested that, Steve? Pastorick?
It was me.
Okay. Thank you. Hearing no further comments. Oh, is anyone concerned about the changing the definitions to match recreation space and landscaping? Maintaining the definition of landscaping, but changing the other to recreation space?
No, I think that's fine.
So it sounds like that's not a major issue. So you're not opposed with the naming of the definition and of the separation of the townhomes and apartment buildings if they're in the same project development, same proposal as far as the requirements. They each stand on their own. And there's still a question around trees. Are there any other issues? This won't preclude you from having any other issues.
Yeah, I still think we need the minimum landscaping on those larger units to be 25%, not 10%. I think that's just too much of a drop. When you look on the standards, 1, 2, 3, the fourth screen down. I don't know why we would change and give them more leeway when they're putting a lot more units per acre. That's that many more people that need green space to recreate. I mean, to me, if my own backyard's big enough, my kids don't have to go roam the neighborhood to find something to do. And if you have enough green space right here, they're not leaving the area and going off and creating problems elsewhere. So that's my one heartburn on the percentages.
Well, why don't we just add that to the discussion for the next time we bring this? Is it okay if we bring it back?
Yeah, I think it's good.
I need a few more heads nodding. Okay. But let's give this a little bit of time. I don't think we need to bring it back next week. Maybe about 3-4 weeks where you can ponder that. And if, and Councilwoman Lang, if you want to pursue that some more with Mr. Pasterik or with staff or whatever, for some more detail and impact and that's fine.
Okay.
But maybe we could have that ready in 3 or 4 weeks to bring back. And then also maybe define a little more clearly. I don't do a great job of it, but Steve Pastrick can do a great job of the tree issue and define the impact of doing a tree for, every 1,500 square feet of landscape space.
So I would ask that when it is brought back, we have the research on the other cities. It would be helpful for me if we had a column alongside it that shows what our requirements are now. And if we have a proposal, a column for that too. So I'm not so much back and forth trying to see how they compare if we had it on one table.
Yeah. I like that. So making a table kind of like they did, or I guess Steve did this, the table on the open space amenities development type and kind of compared those.
We often have our statute right with the others so we can more easily compare them.
But we would only do that on the items up for discussion. In other words, we won't put everything there.
Right.
Only the ones, and if council members have any that you think of, in addition to that, I'm okay. Even if it's just one council member wanting to raise that issue, I'm okay. And add that to the list. And that should give you plenty of time, even with the holidays. Are we okay there? Okay. Mr. Powell gave me a thumbs up, so. All right. Let's see. Then we'll move next to the council calendar. Or excuse me, Mr. Pastrick, Mr. Pyle, did you have any clarification you needed on that?
No, sir.
No, I'm good too, Mayor.
Okay. Then let's go to our council calendar. I did note that there are some items that it looks like we can participate in. What was the one that I just got in the last day or two? It seemed like it was, I had to get my phone here, and the drive-in holiday laser spectacular at the, I think that was at the Maverick Center. So there are some things that we can still do during COVID-19. In fact, because of the uniqueness of the situation we're in, would the council like to have a list of events that are of this type that you can do by staying in your car or by being automatically socially distanced, so that we could take families to that? I know you can still do groups of 10 and different things like that, but I'm wondering if we ought to highlight those that we can do like this. Kind of like the little green card, but a special one to say, this is what you can do, and you don't have to get out of your car, or you don't have to mix with people other than your family.
Maybe we don't need another printing. We just could have that noted on the calendar that we have, that this is a.
Well, rather than mixing it in the calendar, I would prefer to have it an email to us. It can go on the calendar. I'm okay with that. But I'd like a specific email, or at least to me. Is that too much work, Mr. Pyle? It seemed like it ought to be fairly easy.
I'm sure we can work something out, Mayor. Get you that information. I don't think it's a bad suggestion to modify the calendar a little bit too. We could always just say drive-through friendly or something at the end of each event, if it is such. And we can get you that information as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other comments on the calendar? Next. Oh, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The one is November 27, Trees of Diversity exhibit. That's still open, and we still bring the family to take a look at that, or close.
Still open as far as I know. I haven't heard of any closure. Paul, have you got any information on that?
Paul, you should be able to unmute your microphone now.
Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't, I'm like you, Wayne. I haven't heard of any difference.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that's still on.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, well,
Wayne?
go ahead, Don.
Wayne, as we were decorating the trees, the tree that we're decorating this weekend, we were told that the public events at the Cultural Center had been canceled through the end of the year. So
I have not heard that, Don. I have heard of modification to events in terms of how they're conducted. And in some cases, if they couldn't be socially distanced or weren't in accordance with what the governor's proclamation was, especially time frame wise, then they might be canceled. But I haven't heard of any blanket cancellation of all of them. Paul, again, you got any information on that?
Yeah, Don, are you hearing that from my staff there? Because the last we talked.
yeah. One of them in charge of the Trees of Diversity.
Okay, well, I better check it out.
He's the only staff I really work with. Okay.
I'll check it out.
When you have
All
that
right, thank you.
when you have that clarified, would you just send an email to council members just so we're aware?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'll do that tonight.
And in fact, I got to figure out how I can make an appointment maybe to get the trees of diversity without a crowd. So anyway,
I think they were thinking of going virtually with it, but I'm not sure.
oh,
To say the
Oh.
least, that's what we would
They
do,
just-
but they're still decorating trees, right, Don, or Councilman?
Not anymore. They completed it yesterday,
Well, I meant that there are trees
or
decorated.
they should have it completed yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
There
I'll
are
get back
decorated
with y'all.
trees, yes.
I'll get back with y'all tonight and let you know.
Thank you.
okay. Future potential agenda items? Hearing none, council
One
reports.
thing, I was trying to get unmuted again. I had a call from Janice Fisher about some property that apparently is going before the Planning Commission at some time on 6400 West and 35th South. I haven't seen anything on any of the agendas about it or any of the upcoming agendas. So I don't know if she's just getting ahead of the game or just what. So
Wayne, this is Nicole. I actually have an answer for that, if that's okay.
thank you.
Okay.
So I did get a call from Janice as well. Steve Pastrick mentioned that this has gone through the Planning Commission already. It will be coming to the council, but he's waiting to get the development agreement signed. So we won't see that for another few weeks.
Okay.
And I believe it requires a zoning change, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. So there will also be a notice that goes out to all residents within 300 feet.
Yeah. So it'll be one that we'll have some say on.
Yeah.
It's not an
All right.
automatic.
Yeah. She sounded like it was going to happen tomorrow. And I tried to call her. I called her back and told her I haven't seen anything on the agendas yet. But, you know, Janice, she keeps it up.
Yeah. Well, I think she was thinking the Planning Commission calendar, or, agenda.
Yeah.
So it's been there and, it's moving through the process. So, okay. Then council reports. I have one I would mention. I went over this earlier this afternoon to Hunter High School, had a ribbon cutting ceremony for the new addition onto the high school. Beautifully done, very nice. And expanded the capabilities there quite significantly. And there were more people there than I thought there should be, but they kept us socially distanced because they had the architects, the construction people, the school board, administration from the school, elected officials. So, and I represented this there, and I kept socially distanced and wore my K95 mask. So, but it was really nice. They've done a good job with it, and it fits right in. I would mention, because I've been in several meetings with Chamber West, several of you are involved there. The committee that reviews the work for the legislative process for where the chamber stands on issues. We've had quite a few discussions revising issues relating to changes in the tax code, education, economic development, housing, air quality, different things. And in fact, once they have those approved, we're working right now on the drafts of those. It might be beneficial to the council to be sent a copy of those. I don't think you need a presentation on it, but you might be interested in what's happening with the chamber and their position papers, if you will, on these various items. But those won't be approved until late December. And we'll have the chamber send us a copy. In fact, I'll suggest they do that to the different councils within the chamber area. There's no need for a closed session. Is there anything else? Then if someone will make a motion to adjourn, why? We'll be done.
So moved.
Without objection, we will stand adjourned. Hearing no objections, I rule that it passed unanimously.